Welcome to the Startup Grind.
So without much ado, let me introduce you guys to Ankur. He's the regional head for Groupon. He looks after 4 countries: India, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand. And before that, he worked for Rocket Investments, where he was a venture partner. So he helped with Jabong.com and I think Groupon as well. And then even before that, he was a co-founder with Accenture Web, where these guys produce these awesome websites: Gari.com, Sekinshadi.com, Taza.com, StudyNation.com, and then there are a few more. And then before that, he was a consultant with A.T. Kearney as well. He's an ISB grad, and then he's a MS in physics as well from Michigan University. And he's only like 33 or 32 or something like that.
33.
So is there anything left for you to? So anyways, please, please welcome.
Thank you. Should I sit there?
Yeah.
Great. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Though I come here every week, but
Yeah. I actually failed to mention he's also a teacher. So I was, while I was doing my research, I just thought, is there anything left for you to do?
Lots. my financial, I stay in Faridabad, and my financial goal is to own a house in Delhi, which is getting harder and harder for me to do. So I've given up on that. So now it's all spiritual, right? So
The way we start is, we would like to know you. So the first question we generally ask, where did you grow up? Something about your family, your siblings, your school, stuff like that.
Sure. So I come from Kashmir, which is the northern part of India. For the three of you, everyone else would perhaps know. But I've stayed all my life in Delhi. I grew up here. I wasn't born here. I was born in Amritsar, but I've grown up here. I went to Delhi University for my bachelor's. Did physics at Hindu College, and had a ball of a time. And then back then my role models were Fox Mulder and Dana Scully of X-Files. I wanted to become a NASA scientist. I wanted to be the first man on Mars. And all of that led me to the US, where I did my master's in physics with the hope of getting a PhD, finally becoming a professor, going to NASA and all that. But then I realized that NASA only takes people who are American citizens, so I'll have to give up my Indian citizenship. I said, no, I'm not doing that. No. So let Shah Rukh Khan become the NASA scientist in a movie. I realized after my master's I didn't want to continue, so I worked in the US for a year, in the university itself. I wouldn't call it professional working in any circumstance. It's a very protected environment, as you can imagine. I was writing research papers for magazines trying to predict the age of the Milky Way and all that. So it was just very nice, cool stuff when I spoke to girls. So I was becoming an astrophysicist, and almost 50% of the girls used to extend their hand. I says, no, I didn't mean an astrologist, I meant an astrophysicist. So it was fun. And then I decided to come back. I always wanted to come back to India. There was so much happening back then. This is 2002, right after the dot-com bubble. So the US was going through its pangs. India was suddenly the shining star. This was the India Shining campaign, all that time. And I came back, but I was a guy with a master's in physics with nothing else, and virtually everyone said, no, there's no hope in hell for you in India. You're not going anywhere.
You need to be an engineer in India.
Yeah, exactly, right? Or maybe not even that anymore.
Yeah.
So you need to. So I said, okay, so what happens? I says, you need to do something called an MBA. I said, what's that? I said, it's a business degree. It will get you nice jobs and all that. So I said, okay. And then I looked around and I said, all the MBA were 2 years. And I said, no, that's just too much investment for something I don't even know about. And back then, ISB had just started. It had been 3 years for the Indian School of Business. I loved the concept. It seemed to be extremely in the face of a lot of people, just completely destroyed a lot of notions that business education was about. So I decided to apply there. In fact, I applied while I was at the US, and I got through, but I couldn't make it because I had some submissions. So I was a diligent student back then. So I gave up on my MBA education because I had to create a deadline or reach a deadline. So I applied again. I got through, thankfully, and I went to the ISB. But before that, I got a year of my first professional experience at a small company called NIS Sparta, which had just been acquired by Reliance. So it was a completely different environment for me from university.
Right. No longer small anymore.
Yeah. Well, so then I went to ISB. I did a year there, and I absolutely loved that experience. It completely changed the way I thought about things, exposed me to a lot more, and that was when I also decided that I want to be a consultant, because that was what I was doing
So
at NIS.
the entrepreneur genes haven't been awakened by then.
So entrepreneurial streaks were there, no? If I may be a little non-humble. So I remember my first entrepreneurial venture was selling trump cards. I don't know if you guys know. You guys are not from the WWF era, no? Or some of you may have seen that, yeah? Exactly. Some of you, yeah. So great. No, I never got that concept. I never understood what people get out of it. But there was this time, and maybe there still is, there was this time when every kid growing up was just crazy about WWF. No, Undertaker or Yokozuna or some names like that. Yeah. And there was this frail guy, Joe 123 or some kid. And there were these trump cards that you used to play with. So they had just launched, and there was this. And they were spreading out wild, and along with the trump cards, these guys whosoever were making them, they started making stickers of these WWF stars that you could post on your pencil box, your cupboard, something like that. So I bought one of them, not knowing what to do with it. I just thought it was cool stickers, etc. And then I was in my school bus, and this guy said, "Hey, these are cool. How much are these for?" I said, ₹5, because that's what I bought them for. And there were 20 of them. So he's like, "Okay, give me all 20." I says, "Yeah, okay." And then I gave him, and he gave me a ₹100 note. And I had meant ₹5 for the sheet. He thought ₹5 per sticker. I was like, "That's it. That is my first venture." And I did that for the whole of 2 days before someone figured out. It says, "I found these at ₹5 in the market the other day." That's when I stopped doing it. And the other time, this is almost illegal, is not this one. The one I'm going to share is when I was in the US, and I'm active on this website called Quora. It's a fascinating website. You all should be part of it. It's just beautiful. And I've written about this. I could go to jail. So what had happened is my first summer in the US, when I came back to India, I had to for some work. Before I came back, went to Amazon, and science books are extremely expensive in the US, upwards of $100, $150, so on and so forth. They're not so much in India because they're Asian editions.
Plus
So,
you can always photocopy.
Yeah, well, photocopying is not an acceptable art in the US,
Right.
as is in DU. So I drew a list of the top 10 sellers, Resnick Hallidays and all those really physics heavy-duty books. And I came to India. I went to Nai Sarak, which is in Chandni Chowk, and I bought all those books full of a suitcase.
Okay.
And then I relisted them as second-hand books on eBay. And in the US when I went back, and I made some $1,200 in a day.
That's awesome.
And I bought my first laptop through that. So that's what I did. I am very sure it's illegal, but when I wrote that in Quora, there were all these guys, "Oh, no, it's illegal, etc. How could you be, like the CEO of this publicly listed company and openly declare it, etc." And then someone came to my rescue. So in the US, there was a law passed that this is acceptable, and this can happen. Yes. So only in secondhand, not in primary. So you can't sell it at the retail price. But a book retailing for $150, I sold them for $35. I bought them for like 10. That was it. So I knew I wanted to become an entrepreneur. Long story short, I just don't know when, and I didn't know what.
So ISB kind of gave you the path, or
Yes.
gave you the vision?
I think it gave me the confidence. It gave me the confidence that it didn't matter if I failed, because I could always go back to what I was doing, and this pedigree or this network that I had built would support me there.
Right. So, I actually wanted to ask you this question because you're such a big supporter of MBA, and I've gone through your blog as well. You're very passionate about ISB, by the way. So, there are guys like Guy Kawasaki, Vivek Wadhwa, these guys are like MBA bashers. They say entrepreneurs, no MBA.
Yeah.
What's your take on this?
I think it's the timing in your life. If you already know that you want to be an entrepreneur and you already are, an MBA is a waste of time. definitely would be, because you're better. And I know, so I'm on the ISB admissions panel and I interview guys, and there are these kids who are, I shouldn't say kids, but they're these smart guys who are running companies, and they want to leave that and come to ISB. And my first question is, ISB is worth 25 odd lakhs now, extremely expensive. What if I gave you this 25 to put it back into your business? Would you much rather do that or come to an MBA education? And they almost always say, I would still do the education. And at least for me, that doesn't cut the slack, because that's not what a true entrepreneur would be. However, in my case or several others, where you haven't yet become an entrepreneur, maybe you don't know what. And in my case, I was a physics guy. I didn't even know anything about business. MBA worked for me a lot. I'd imagine there are a lot of people for whom MBA would just not work.
Right. And this is exactly the place where you met your co-founders as well,
Yes.
Umang and Vivek.
Yes. So Umang and Vivek, who I started my first company with, they were my batchmates. Vivek was my, we don't share rooms at ISB, but we share apartments.
He was in Michigan as well.
He was in Michigan as well, but he was in University of Michigan. I was in Michigan State. We fight. We're not friendly. So that's where we met. And it was all by coincidence. I remember Vivek and I, along with two other friends, were just meeting one fine evening, and he said, I'm working on this idea called secondshadi.com. I said, what's that? And he said, it's a matrimonial site for divorcees and widowed people. Now, can you imagine how many marriages take place in India? Of course, some bit of it would be getting divorced, and of course, widowed as well. They don't have any avenue as organized as a matrimonial site. I said, I love it. I said, would you want to help me on that? I said, sure, why not? Tell me what you want. And that's how we got started.
Yeah, so before we jump to that,
Yeah.
I want to take you back to AT Kearney.
Yeah, sure.
So ISB to AT Kearney.
Yep.
I guess everyone in ISB wants to become a consultant. So you
Yes.
pretty much had the same idea.
Yes. So AT Kearney, yeah. So ISB to AT Kearney. Yes, that was a conscious choice. I honestly, when I joined ISB, I only knew of McKinsey and BCG as management companies, and nothing else was these AT Kearneys, Boos, Bains, and I don't know, they're just random names. So, but once I entered ISB, I realized all that I was sure of, I want to get into management consulting, because that's who I am by just personality. I cannot be doing one thing at a time. That I feel is the worst use of my time. So I have to be doing multiple things, and consulting was perhaps the best thing. You multiple projects, different clients, thrown into different situations, ambiguity. Thankfully, it worked out.
So you must have learned a lot. So that kind of paved your way
Yes.
to become the entrepreneur that you are.
Yes, absolutely. So two things that AT Kearney. So I was in AT Kearney for 3 years, and what it gave me was, if you have friends who are management consultants or you are yourself, one thing that gets spoken about is it gives you structure in thought. So when you look at management consulting presentations, they're all about matrices, 2 into 2, all about process flow diagrams, etc., etc. All that is fancy, but it's all about structure. You're breaking down a problem into smaller problems, and you're figuring out how to solve them one by one. And that really, really helped me in being an entrepreneur, or at least attempting to be one.
So all my management friends that I've known, they say that it's like an 80-hour job, and you managed to work on Extension Web part-time with AT Kearney.
Yes.
So did you ever sleep or?
I did manage to, yes. So the structure was, I actually first went to AT Kearney when this idea came about, and I sought their permission. And I said, I want to do this. It will not come at the expense of my work, and you have to be cautious of that, and keep judging me on that as well. And they said, it's fine. So the agreement was, I would work definitely for 5 days a week on AT Kearney, and whatever time I get, which is my personal time, I would put it into the startup. But that wouldn't come at the expense of AT Kearney. So for a year and a half, I was working 5 days on Kearney and 2 days on Exentium.
Okay, but that's actually pretty nice of AT Kearney.
They were, yeah. And I'd imagine that almost everyone will say the same. Maybe people don't approach them. They're साथ में startup करते हैं, and we make enough money, and then we'll one day say F off, and I don't need you guys.
So Delhi mein to everyone is a real estate entrepreneur.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Everyone in my office, buying flats and selling them off and
Absolutely.
making.
For that one day when they will have the balls to put in their resignation letter without asking for it. Yeah, but
So Extension Web was started by Vivek.
yes.
So before that, Vivek kind of had this website, Desi
Desi
Martini.
yes.
So what I wanted to check with you was that the once he sold that off, was that the amount the money that came from Desi Martini was used as?
No, actually not. So Desi Martini, which Vivek ran, who's the CEO of Accentium and the founder, that was his personal gain. So that never came through. So Accentium was started by complete personal funds. A large part of it coming from Vivek's dad, who was like the de facto investor, and then our personal funds as well. We never raised money. We still haven't ever raised money. In fact, I've never raised money in my life, which is kind of a taboo. I've never seen a term sheet in my life, ever. Which was different from Manish Vij, who was sitting here 2 weeks back, who signs one every day or something
exactly.
like that. Yeah. So I've never seen a term sheet in my life. I don't know what it means.
Okay, interesting.
But yeah. But
so with your own funds, but how did you manage to scale up? Because I think you had this product plus services kind of a model.
Yes.
So was that right at the beginning, or?
So our first website was Second Shadi, and that was an extremely profitable venture. Very low investment, extremely high margins. So we turned profitable within 3 months, and we recovered all the money that we had eventually settled in 6. So from 6 months onwards, it was like this nice cash flow that was pumping in, and we were using this money to pay off the salaries and build other products. And what we did nice was we built a development team that was shared. So that development team, as soon as they built one product, we're just building the next, and then the next, and then the next. And we had the call center that was almost shared. We had salespeople who were somewhat distinct, so on and so forth. So we used a lot of shared services concept to quickly build these websites, 6 of them in all, and that helped.
So all three of you guys are actually technology guys, or you were all business guys?
Vivek's the technology guy and the front face. Umang is also a computer science engineer. I don't know computer science.
You're the Excel guy.
I'm an Excel guy, yes. So if someone asked me, can you code, I said in Excel, and says, yeah, whatever.
Right. So for startups, is it always the product that helps, or it's good to have something in services as well, to get the cash flowing coming in?
It depends on what market you're catering. For instance, a matrimonial website is it's a very non-sales environment, right? Because you don't really need to push. People would buy on their own. We had structured the pricing in such a mechanism that it actually worked really well. So we were the first matrimonial site in India to launch a payment mechanism based on contacts rather than time. So we said, you pay this much to connect with these many people. And we made it in such a way that it was so we had 3 packages, just to give you a bit of a detail. We had a package at 999, which allowed you to connect to 10 people. So you could view the profile of anyone. You could send in a hi to anyone, but that was all about it. If you needed to really have a conversation, get contact details, etc., you needed to pay this amount.
Something like LinkedIn Premium.
Exactly, right? So it was 999 for 10, 1999 for 20, and 2999 for unlimited. And then suddenly what happened is everyone went for the 2999 because it's second marriage, right? So you're a bit more cautious. You want to explore enough opportunities, etc. First marriage, no, you're just too excited now. So you'll just possibly settle for the first one, right? That's it. But second marriages, you'll take your time, etc. And we also did that math. So we found that the time period from when a person created a profile to the time that they found a match was 9 months. Which is a fairly long time, but that's perhaps true for second marriages, not so much for first. So we structured it that way, and it helped. And then we had that call center, which was the services, just to help make sure that they can find everything. But that was a completely automated product. It's the best you can get to building your own business. You don't require anything except for 2 people who are attending calls and 3 people who build the website. That's it. But the others that we built, so Gaadi.com was the second one. It was a complete, absolute sales model. There was nothing trivial about that business because we built the website. So we started with used cars, and we said, let's create a marketplace of used cars. There's so many used cars being sold and bought every day in India. Let's create a marketplace. Let's make it easier. So we thought that most of the volume will come in from individual buyers like you and I who had cars to either buy and sell. But no, that wasn't the case. Most of the volume in India was driven by car dealers who were buying and selling, almost trading in cars, because they knew that the market for used cars was massive. The supply is limited because in India, typically you start selling cars when it's 5 to 7 years old. And 5 to 7 years back, in 2006, so that's mean 2001, there were hardly any car models in India. There were only the Marutis and the Fiats and so on and so forth. It completely exploded in 2003, 2004. So there was limited supply, but there were enough people who wanted cars. And that mismatch was completely exploited by dealers. But dealers were also not online. They didn't care. So if we went to a dealer and said, we'll give you a good interface, we'll get you to upload photographs, write in the specs, and it says, like, kya bol rahe ho? Right? So, kaun karega ye? Right? So it just didn't work. So it was an absolute hands down thing where we had to literally help them build the business, get the listing in place, etc., and it wasn't easy at all. But that's the way we scaled it.
So, you came out with so many products. How did you conceptualize? Were you like researching, or you had a team working for you to figure out, these areas, these
No, we had 3 very expensive MBAs as founders. They better do their job. No, so we didn't hire any research analyst or consulting firm. No, our understanding, or the way we thought about it, was very simple. So we were in the advertising space. All that we did is we looked at the print media and looked at the biggest categories of print. And we said there has to be a time and place when this migrates to online. It's eventuality that can never go off. Cars, yes. Real estate, yes. Education, yes. These are the 3 biggest categories, and matrimonial. All these 4 are the bread earners for a print company, a Times of India or a Hindustan Times. That's where they get their money from. We said, let's build that. That's it. That's all that we need to do. Just build that. We didn't do real estate because it's extremely hard and it's a very, very hard market to crack. But everything else, education and cars and matrimonial, we did. Matrimonial, we didn't get into primary matrimonial because there were already shadi.coms and it was too messy already. That was it. There wasn't, as a lot of you may think, before you start, you do all these Excel numbers and sheets and validations, etc., etc. Honestly, when I go back, and perhaps even today, it's just gut. It's do epic shit. That's it. That's your driver, and that's what you go
right.
with.
So this is, I had this thought from Manish's conversation as well. You're just giving us a fairy tale kind of a story. So you must have failed sometimes in Accenture. You must have thought, okay, yaar, let's go back to 80 karni.
So no, thankfully that didn't happen. I'm extremely lucky to say that. But what I would go back to is, most of the decisions that I've taken in life have been seemingly very risky. So leaving the US, 100% scholarship, the best university for what you're doing, the life, the works, blah, blah, blah. And says, leave it, come back. What you're going to do, I don't know. Right? And everyone in my world said, you are a fool. Like, if my parents had enough money, they would say, we will not give you any of our wealth anymore. Right? And that's it. Right? They would never make me inheritance or whatever it is. So that was one. And to a lot of people, that decision itself will not be easy. And I don't know what worked for me, but this is how I operate. For me, it wasn't a hard decision because that was the only thing that I could have done. There was nothing else. The same was joining ISB. So when I joined ISB, I had all of 14,000 rupees in my bank account. That was it. That's the only money I had. And I went to SBI to apply for a loan of 14 lakhs. My dad said, there's no way that I can, I'm your guarantor, but that's just a signature. If anything happens, I have nothing to back that up. And I said, no, hopefully that wouldn't need to happen. But that itself, and I'd got through IIMs, I'd got through XLRI. At that time, they were like 5 lakhs, 6 lakhs, 8 lakhs, highly subsidized, etc. And ISB was still a name. It was in its 5th year. People were still figuring out what it was, etc. And that was the second decision. But again, in my head, there wasn't any other decision. And the third big one, well, actually no, the third one was leaving Kani and joining Accenture. Management consulting, stayed in 5-star hotels for 5 days a week, met all the people that we see on the magazines of India, worked with them as a 25-year-old, told them what they should do about their business, and they agreed. All that, and says, no, I will go and build secondshadi.com. Well, and took a massive pay cut. I got married that year. Again, very risky decision. Everyone questioned. Everyone said no. Everyone said that's, etc., etc. And then also leaving Accenture, which I'm guessing you will come to. But yeah. So it wasn't a fairy tale. I'm really blessed to be where I am, and I think it's just pure luck. There's nothing else. I would want to credit myself for what I've done, but I think I can't. There are enough people who've worked harder than me, and they still continue to. But I'm just where I am because I was in the right time, right place, and
Right.
yeah, it works.
So, just sticking to Accenture and on this topic on co-founders. So, were you guys like equal percentage partners, or Vivek kind of hired you as a co-founder?
No, so yeah, so since Vivek started, he was the majority guy, and that was the understanding. We were all comfortable with that, especially because Second Shadi was his idea, Gaadi was his idea. We were more of, execution co-founders, right? Just getting the thing off because he was just one guy and he couldn't do it. So even all of Accentium, the 6 businesses, we were a total of 43 people. We were like the WhatsApp of that time, though much smaller and with no money. But that's who we were. So we were running these, with just 43 people, we were running 6 businesses, making enough money, very profitable, but not, of course, like crazy top lines and all that stuff. And that was the understanding that he would continue to. Plus, because his dad's company had been the investor, by virtue of that, his dad's company owned majority of that company.
Okay. So, what's your advice on actually selecting co-founders? Because I think it's one of the most.
Yes.
So you were kind of lucky because you had these friends from ISB and you had a chance to know these guys.
Yes.
But someone who's starting out and looking for co-founders, what do you should look for?
It's the hardest thing ever, honestly. I think it's for the true entrepreneur. I would imagine that it's harder than finding a marriage partner. And I'm not saying this because it's frivolous or anything, because the journey that you have once this thing kicks off is just so demanding, just so mind numbing that you would never have the time to really stop and say, is this working, is this not working? And the day that you realize that it's working, it's not working, you will say, oh shit, what just happened? And at that point of time, the breakout or whatever it is just very, very, very hard, which is unlike marriage, right? Because it's slow and steady. You have all these days and times and blah. You go on a honeymoon, etc. There's no honeymoon in a startup. It's just work from day one, and that's why I can imagine it's extremely hard. That's why I imagine forums like these are extremely important, because that's where the valley cracked it. The valley is valley not because there's money in there. The valley is valley because you can literally walk into a cafe, and go up and says, not when you have a drink, and it says, want to start a company? It's almost like that. The people don't date there. They find co-founders. That's what they do, and that's what's fascinating. So it's hard. I don't think there's any science behind it. There isn't. And there's no way of figuring it out that this would work till the time you get into it, which is the scarier part, because you're literally betting your idea on something that you wouldn't know whether it works or not.
So, is it just good to have a single promoter and then kind of hire co-founders, offer them maybe some amount of equity, and then at least you have this leverage that if it's not working out, you can at least fire them or...
I'll answer this question differently. I think the biggest mistake that people make when they are finding co-founders is they find friends. And that's never a good idea. That isn't. So the reason why Vivek and I worked was because, not that he was a friend or that we stayed together at ISB, is because he could do what I couldn't do and I could do what he couldn't do. So he's the development guy. He's the techie. He can build this stuff, which I cannot. I learned it, and it was very hard for me because it didn't come naturally. But for him, sales and marketing, it doesn't come naturally. He's not a very extrovert person. He can't go and close deals, for instance. Deals in the sense not Groupon deals, but just deals, right? He can't he can't go ahead and have sales conversations or anything like that. And that's where it beautifully worked for us. That's what you have to look for in a co-founder. So most people would say, I'm not a techie, I need to find a technology partner, and that guy could be your co-founder, and there's nothing wrong with it. And he could come whenever you have the need for it, rather than beginning, as you were suggesting, right from the start. No, that isn't important. It isn't. But trying to do it all by yourself is extremely hard. I can imagine you would, if you could be the Superman and do it, but you will always have these buckloads of doubt of whether I'm doing it right or not, and never have really the bouncing board that you want, which will be your co-founder. That's critical.
So 3 years at Accenture Web, and you decided to move on.
Yes.
Rocket Investments.
Yes.
How did that happen?
So the reason why I moved out of Accentium, again, that was what people again classify as a risky decision. Everything was going fine. We were now being spoken about, talked about, things were looking good, and suddenly I said, you know what, it's done. And the biggest driver of that was I realized that the business model of Accentium was advertising, and that could never be a really big scalable business in India. There are only a couple of companies that you can think of, maybe Rediff, maybe India Times, which have really got to that scale. Even Yahoo struggles, whatever it does, etc. And they are massive. So if you were to build a media company purely on advertising, there's only so much that you can go to. And that's where I thought, no, I want to do more. I want to experience the next scale. I want to get 10x and not be limited there. And I took a conscious choice. I said, let's split. And that's what happened. When I quit, I didn't have any idea. Again, no, it's like this. It's a wrong attitude to have, I think. No, it's like I have a family, I have people to support, and I'm like this Banjara. So I don't care. No, let's go.
So didn't Vivek and Umang kind of talk to you out of it?
Well, there were several things that were happening around that time. So the Gaudi exit was happening. We sold Gaudi to the Ibibo group, and at that point of time, there was a chance for me to also monetize my share. And that was like the commercial part of it. I said, okay, no, why not? If all these things are putting in line. And the departure happened that Umang went on to lead Gaudi, and he's the CEO of Gaudi right now under the Ibibo banner. I exited Accentium, and Vivek still runs Accentium for Second Shadi and Taza, which are the two main brands. And I didn't have any idea. The only idea I had was an idea which I think has still potential. I wanted to open up a chain of dessert parlors in India.
Yeah, I think we woefully need that.
Yeah, exactly.
After there's hardly any option.
Yeah, exactly. No, if I want to have some desserts after food, there is no place to go except for those coffee shops where there's the same walnut brownie. Yeah. Do you want it with ice cream, without ice cream? And the same question, and come on, and all those. But you'll see that bakeries are just flourishing, but no one has. So I wanted to replicate the dessert section of a 5-star buffet. That was my idea. Small portions, multiple varieties. You go in, you pay for any 5, no, whatever, anything. Anyways, that's it. But I wasn't from the retail background, and back then, all the investors that I spoke to is like, you're an internet guy. Why do you want to do retail, etc., etc. So I don't have an answer. I'm just an entrepreneur. I can build this thing for you if you want to, but if you want pedigree, I don't have it. And so okay. So I said, okay, you know what? I'll do it when I have enough money, or possibly I'll back someone up who wants to do it. And that's when I was looking for what to do next. And Rocket happened. And if I look at my life, I think most of it. How many of you have heard of this concept called the PayPal Mafia? Yeah. Elon Musk. It's a fantastic concept. You should read about it. So we all know about PayPal. A lot of successful companies that you see today, especially in internet, have come from the original team of PayPal. It's almost as if that company churned out the best possible entrepreneurs that our generation has ever seen. And it can't be by coincidence. It can't be that they just gathered, they had an IQ test and all of them, they got together, all that. So it's because of the network. It's because your opportunities are built because of your network. And that's where, that's the story of my life. There's nothing else that's helped me. Rocket Internet was a ISB job posting that came up. ISB has about 2,900 alums as of now, so about 2,600 back then. I was the only ISBN that applied to that role. I don't know why no one else read that. I don't know what happened. I was the only one who applied for that. It was an unknown name, Rocket Internet. No one knew about it. The big fame that they had was the founders, which were the Sambor brothers, had sold something to eBay. That was the only claim to fame that they had. And I said, sure. And I met those guys. I met one of the brothers, Oliver Sambor, who is the awesomest guy on earth right now when it comes to internet business, while a lot of people would disagree because of his style and everything. But that guy just blew me off and says, I'm going to work with you because I'm going to learn so much from you. And he said, I'm setting up Rocket Internet in India, and you drive that for me. I said, sure, I will do that. What's your first business? And he says, I want to open up a fashion retailer online. I said, oops, FDI. So I don't know, just figure it out. So we did that for 3 months. From Jan of 2011 till March of 2011, we hired a bunch of super experienced lawyers, business consultants, blah, 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 figuring out how we could get into this while still complying with the laws, and we concluded not possible without an Indian partner. And he didn't want an Indian partner. So he said, you know what, shut it down. So we shut it down. We had about 25 people that we had hired, and we shut down. That was my first shutdown. I sat cutting checks to the landlord, to all those, selling the laptops for scrap value, selling the mouse, the wires and all that stuff. Literally liquidated the company overnight because he said, close it down. And then the next day he called me, he said, have you heard of Groupon? I said, yeah, I've heard of Groupon. So I says, we have bought a company, which will be Groupon. So this was in India. We had already bought CityDeal last year in 2010. We bought a company in India called sosasta.com, and that will now be Groupon in India. Come join me there. Sure, why not? And that's it. That's how it happened. So in April 2011, I joined Groupon.
But I thought, the Rocket investments were also involved in Jabong.
So while we were at Jabong, so Jabong started in Jan of last year, 2012. I'm talking about Jan to March 2011. So what happened is in November 2011, Ollie found the Indian partner. Okay. And he called me and said, would you want to now start it again? I said, no, I'm busy with Groupon, I'm loving it, so don't disturb me. I said, okay, fine, I'll find someone else. And that's how Jabong started. So the two CEOs of Jabong, which are Arun and Praveen, were part of the team that we were working on when we originally were working on Jabong. And that's how Jabong happened.
So Groupon, so before starting Groupon, I had a question. What exactly is venture partner?
Okay, so it's a fancy name. So the style of Rocket Internet, for those of you who don't, Rocket Internet picks up management consultants and investment bankers and calls them managing directors and places them into businesses in the country. So these are typically, like, I know of people who have been fired because they were too old. Right? So it's a company that hires people between 25 to 30 years of age, gives them super normal titles, a lot of autonomy, and snatches away their work-life balance. So says, that's it, you're gone, and gives you a little bit of equity. Venture partner is basically the guy responsible for the business of Rocket Internet in that country. And at any point of time, they would have multiple venture partners. So we are responsible for generating ventures for Rocket Internet.
Okay. So first you started as a consultant for Groupon.
Yes.
And then you eventually kind of joined their...
So Ollie, when he told me about Groupon, I wasn't, he said, just see what it is, because it was an acquisition. So he thought that the management team is in place, everything is in place. He said, just go and help them up, because you know the scenario as much as they do, just help them up. And that's what I did for 3 months. And after 3 months, we realized that the acquisition wasn't a good acquisition. The management team wasn't very capable. And I relayed back to Ollie and said, I don't think this will work out the way you would imagine it to be. And he said, do you have anyone else in mind? I said, no, I don't. He says, okay, then it's you. So, and that was it. So he said, you drive Groupon now, and I'll fire those guys. You become the CEO. And that's how it happened. So in August 2011, I was made the country manager of Groupon India.
So how's the Groupon journey been? It's
Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. For two or three things. One is it's it's a type of e-commerce that is completely new to India. When we entered, the likes of Snapdeal and all were already there, but they were not really executing what Groupon was executing globally. It was a very different model of a token price. You pay a certain amount, you pay the rest to the merchant. It was generating a very different kind of customer mentality than what Groupon stood for. So it was completely creating, it's not about growing a company, it's about creating a category. Because the concept of daily deals or the concept of service e-commerce does not exist in India. And that's where it's fascinating, because you're learning things every day. You're figuring out how people will react to buying meals online, buying spa packages online, buying health packages online, buying travel online, etc. And that has been absolutely amazing. The second is the scale. This is exactly what I wanted to do in terms of scale. Today India is a 250 plus size team, and then we have Indonesia, Philippines, and Thailand. So together, I'm managing about 600 people strong, which is a fairly big portion of what the APAC business is in Groupon. That's exactly what I wanted from the experience. But at the same time, it comes in with a lot of autonomy. So I'm tied into a parent or a mothership called Groupon, but what I do on a daily basis is almost as much as I would do it for my own company. They're just the investors.
So Groupon, as I understand, they're very good in terms of technology, especially if you talk about the deal sphere. So I hear that they hire economists, scientists, and people to analyze data. Is that
Right.
is that really happening?
To some extent. uh, we so there are that happens a lot in the US. All their decisions are taken largely on data. What they're thinking of for the future is just mind-boggling. Completely going to change the way people interact with the internet. That is yet to really transmit itself to the entire rest of the world. So what you see Groupon India is perhaps what Groupon US was 2 years back. It's a very underdeveloped version of what the Groupon US is. And we are at the receiving end of those technology interventions as and when they happen. But the Groupon US model, what you're saying is right.
So again, going by news, Groupon has its share of controversies as well. So this is again one of those cases where the founder had to be fired. This founder, who happens to be the CEO, he was actually fired by the board. So and I think you were there at that time.
Yes, I was.
So how? I mean,
I had met him 3 weeks back, and we had an awesome dinner. It was, I think it was the right decision, and I think Andrew also knew it heart to heart. So Andrew is a very creative guy. He was a student of music, which very people knew. He doesn't have an MBA. He's never been to a business school. He was a student of music. Imagine a student of music running a $6 billion e-commerce venture. It doesn't happen, right? So he got us to where we had to, and I think he did a good job till that. But beyond that, it was very visible that things weren't happening the way it was. And when the decision took place, he was actually one of those. So Andrew was part of the board, and he also voted in favor of him being taken out. And I think it was a good decision in hindsight. It didn't really shake the company. It was business as usual. I remember I got to know at about 5 in the morning, and 5:30 we had a management call with all the country CEOs being informed, etc. But yeah, that was it. After that, it's just back to normal.
So, do you think Groupon had this 12 billion valuation earlier, where Google actually made an offer? You think it was wise on Groupon's part to ignore that?
I cannot comment on this. I'm too small a piece on. No, not because of PR issues. Of course not. I don't know. I know nothing about the circumstance to make a fair judgment on it. I can definitely say that if one were to get a peek into what Groupon is thinking of for the future, the concept, not necessarily the company, is much, much, much bigger than the numbers that we are speaking of.
So how do you manage these three other countries as well? So you've got India as well, plus these three country. I mean,
So,
is that fair on your part to?
or fair on someone else's part to give me that. I try to
Exactly,
be
yeah.
fair on my part. Yeah. No. So my style of leadership is very hands off. I get into details. I love details, but I only get into details when something goes bad. So if we have, because of the nature of our business, we have a weekly review. The maximum that we can look out is a quarter. So I have friends now who work with companies like GE, DuPont, etc. So they say, "यार आज मेरी presentation है 2020 vision वाली." So that really, that 2013 you're talking about 2020 vision. Like I don't know the vision of 2013 quarter 4, right? So it's fascinating. So we have these weekly business reviews, and the weekly business review is just a very simple determinant of business was up, business was down, etc. But what Groupon has done really well is we've identified what really drives our business. What are the input variables? So the job of someone like myself or my peers in Groupon is just to see that the input variables are in place. So when I, for instance, do a review, and that would be true for virtually every manager, we tend to focus on the output a lot. But the output has already happened, right? So you can't really influence anything of it. You can only, oh, good job, bad job, blah, 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 don't do it again. But that doesn't help. It doesn't. You have to focus on the input variables, which will determine the output the next week or the next month or the next year. And that's all that I measure. So if I see the number of deals being submitted is going down in a country, I know that 2 weeks down will be a bad week. And that's the flag. Why is it happening? What can we do to correct it? So on and so forth. And that's what it is. It's honestly not that hard. I figured. I'd imagine it would be very hard, multi-country and all that, etc., etc. But if you just stick to the fundamentals, it makes it seem easier.
Right. So I'm almost out of questions. This last question I kind of thought, asking everyone, given the state of Indian economy, and this is what been, the discussion point as well in offices and with all my friends. What is one thing that we could change to make the entrepreneur scene a little better in India? What one message that maybe we can give to Mr. Manmohan Singh, sir, ye kar do.
I have no message for him. I wouldn't even know whether he's heard me or not, right? Because he wouldn't even speak. But no, I think it's a very heavy question which doesn't it isn't required. I think nothing's really changed for entrepreneurs. If anything, maybe the money flow has dried out. But if you ask any VC or any investor sitting today, they are sitting on far more money than they can actually give out. So it's a dearth of ideas, not the dearth of money. That is the story of India. Almost every day I get people writing in, I have this new business idea, etc., etc. But none of it is really different. And it's a fancy word, it's like my film is different, or ye picture hatke hai, and it ends up the same. But it's all about what is it that you're going to do different. It could be difference on execution. It could be difference on technology. It could be the same business idea, but it just has to be something different. You cannot be starting an online bookstore today. Exactly. Now, it's the stupidest idea to think of today because there's someone else who's doing it and perhaps doing it in a fantastic manner. So what is it that you will do different? So if you have that idea, I am sorry. But if that is what their message or their end thing is, oh, economy is bad and that's why I'm not able to start an online bookstore. No, that's the wrong conclusion.
The thing is that government has pretty much remained the same, except that we've got more money, but their lack of ideas.
I think that it's truly lack of ideas. In the last 1 year, I cannot count more than 5 ideas that I said, this is it. I couldn't. And it needn't be Madhuri Dixit perfect or anything like that. It's just something, this has potential. Yesterday, I have to say this, and that's why I love meeting these people. So yesterday, I met this guy, 3 of them, all engineers. They've started this startup called Zop Tree. And it's a social job site, which almost everyone is speaking of nowadays, right from LinkedIn to Naukri to Shine.com with fancy ads, etc. But they've done it beautifully. They've just focused on the employees of the company. And it's such a brilliant idea. Every company will have job postings. Why can't they exploit the social network of their employees to get those jobs filled up through social references and not employ any agency or anything like that? And the product is brilliant, everything is there. Now, if one were to say, I want to start a job site, he will never get the money because there's already Naukri and LinkedIn and Monster and all those guys. But these guys, if they do it well, in 2 years will get acquired by these 3 companies, guaranteed. Have they raised money? No. They've built the product on their own. I said the first day you are looking for money, you have to call me. Okay? Do not call anyone else. Call me. I will not put in the money. Maybe I wouldn't have enough, but I'll tell you who are the right people to go, and I'll put in my little bit as a token amount or whatever it is. But ideas are the only thing that drive investments.
So you know what? I'll open the house for questions.
So I ran a startup down in Brazil for a while called baby.com.br.
Fantastic.
And one of our primary competitors is a rocket company.
Okay.
And so I've spent years battling Oliver and having something of a tense relationship with our competitors. And I've heard people speak really, really well, right? They're the best operators. And I mean, even a guy on our board was once on Groupon's board, Kevin Afrusi.
Yeah.
And he speaks very well of their operational skills.
Right.
I think the problem with the Samra brothers isn't necessarily their operational skills, because they're clearly very clever.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is the model itself.
Yes.
Right? It's a turntable of people. They bring them on. Hey, here's 1% of this, and then they put their soul into it. They stop sleeping. They stop eating.
Exactly.
And then 6 months later, they're on the chopping block and they're gone.
Yes.
And I think there are some ethical questions about, is that really the right way to do business? Because again, it's not their operation that's the problem. It's the way that they treat people, and it's how it's just very transactional.
Right.
And the whole idea of having a community. I mean, like this. I mean, this is a budding entrepreneurial community here.
Yeah.
They want nothing to do with this.
No.
So I'm kind of interested in having you dive in a little bit into why it is you are one of his disciples.
So I'll start with 2 caveats and then I'll answer your question. So one is, if I were to tomorrow build a company, I would never build a rocket internet. I wouldn't, ever. It doesn't comply with my worldview. And I agree with almost all that you said. The cultural aspect, the building a company for the long-term perspective, so on and so forth. That isn't what it is. What I like, though, is they have never tried to be someone else or even suggested that they were someone else. So when someone enters the rocket environment, at no point of time will the Samwar brothers sell them a story that isn't going to be true. What they would say is, it's going to mess up your life. You're going to sleep for less than 2 hours or whatever it is. You're going to work like an ass, and you may succeed, you may not succeed. There are enough case examples, and you can go online and search for all the sob stories and horror stories that have happened from Rocket. And knowing all of that, would you still or would not, right? And everyone who's joined in, I don't think there's ever anyone who doesn't know what the reality of Rocket is, but they still do. And I think why they do is twofold. One, the speed at which you learn things in that short period of time is unparalleled. I've been in, so I don't know how much you are included into the Indian environment, but for instance, Jabong, which we were talking about. When Jabong started in India, there were at least 3 big players, big in all sense of the word, heavily invested, well capitalized, extremely good market value, good customer feedback, so on and so forth. And they said, screw all that, we'll still go in it and we'll try to build it. And in a year, they have done everything operationally, everything marketing-wise, everything sales-wise, everything traffic-wise to be the number 1. Now, if you were in the Jabong experience band, you would get to experience what those other companies experienced in 3 years in just 1 year. You may still not like what happened to your health, what happened to your family, whatever, but you still get that exposure. And equipped with that exposure, you can perhaps go into any place else and be maybe an edge above the others who've had a slightly longer term perspective. That's what I like about thing. And that's not particularly, if you think about it, the reason why I admire him is no one else in the world before thought of doing something like this.
The question is really that if you are hiring the people smarter than you, then the question is why they will work for you. First question. And second question is that how can judge the fake person?
Sure.
Everybody is trying to put
Yeah,
on this on a spot,
Yeah.
"Okay, I'm this and that, and I
Yeah,
can do this and that.
Exactly.
But the question is how, be as a founder or being as an entrepreneur, how you can judge
Yeah.
the fake passion.
Yeah.
So my
Yeah.
question is to fake
Yeah.
passion.
No, good.
And, second is,
Good questions. No, absolutely good questions. So first question is how can you actually get people smarter than you to work for you? And second is how do you judge fake passion, or how do you figure out real passion from not real passion?
and if they come, then how to retain them?
How to retain them? Okay, yeah, it's like the 3 hardest questions in the world. Okay, first one. I look at it slightly different from always work with people who are smarter than you. What I have followed is you always have to work with people who are smarter than people at their age and experience. Okay, not necessarily smarter than you. If they're smarter than you, that's fantastic. But if you only look for that, maybe you will never find someone. So if I'm looking at, and this is something that we do at Infinity as well. So we hire from Infinity. We hire from multiple other schools. We say if we were to pick a guy who's 23 years of age, is he the smartest 23 that we have ever met? Is he smarter than how I was when I was 23? As against saying, I am 33, so can I get a guy who's 23 but still smarter than me? Then he's probably Einstein, right? And you'll never find that guy. So all that you're looking for is if you're hiring someone with 3 years of experience or hiring someone who's at a certain age, is he in the top 1% of his comparison set? And if he is, he will most likely be smarter than you when he reaches your stage. And that's it. That's all that you're looking for. So, and there are several ways of doing that. Like for instance, one very transactional way, but I still use that because it's worked in our benefit, is this guy earning more than his peers? Okay? How can someone earn more than his peers if he's still in a job? Maybe he knows someone, right? Do you know who my father is, right? Stuff like that. Or he's just good. More often than not, we would find them extremely, extremely successful. Extremely. And he needn't be smarter than me. Like he could be, I'm sure he is. But by the time he reaches my age, he'll definitely be way more smarter than me. That's all I'm looking for. So that's question 1. Question 2 is, it's very hard. And I think even I've learned it the hard way of what are those very fundamental questions that you have to ask to figure out what kind of an individual that is. So there are 2 or 3 questions that at least I ask. You can use them if you find them good enough. And I've written a blog on that as well. Number 1 is, let's say you or your dad or your granddad or grandma, whatever it is, you had loads and loads of money. So you did not have to ever work for money. Okay, so you don't ever have to work for money. What would you do in life? Okay, and that question usually gives out very different perspectives about the person. Most people say, I'll travel, etc. And then your follow question is, can you travel all your life? And if they say yes, maybe that is passion. Because it's very hard to travel all your life. And very few people can do that. But if they say yes, that's great. Some people say, I'll go shopping. And I says, okay. That's it. There's a sale, because that's as short term as it gets, right? So they may say, I'm the most passionate person on earth. They say, if you give you money, what will you do? And they say, I'll go shopping. No, that's clearly not what you want to be. And there are other things, and it's fascinating what people emerge with or how it is. A lot of people would say, and it's fascinating. I had this, I remember what was the best answer. I should look it up, but I remember these 2 or 3 answers, and that truly told me something about the individual. One of them was,
I read it on your blog.
Yeah.
The person
what did he?
went to the college for the different courses.
Yes, exactly. That's what he did. He said, thank you so much for that. He said, I will enroll myself in the top courses in all the universities of the world. That's what I would do. Fascinating. That's the best answer that you can perhaps give if you had money. He doesn't have to ever earn for money. And he said, I'll go to Stanford and pick up the entrepreneurship course. I'll go to Harvard, pick up whatever. I'll go to Wharton, pick up the marketing course. I'll go to IIT, pick up this, blah, blah, blah. So he clearly is someone that wants to, and that's great. And the third question, so that's question 1. Question 2 that I ask is, what's the riskiest thing you've done in life? That's it, simple. What's the riskiest thing you've done in life? A lot of people will say, rafting, stuff like that. And those are fine. That may be risky in their head. But there are a lot of people who then say, no, you know what? Changing my job and picking this up, I thought was very risky. And maybe because I can relate to it, and that's why there's a connect. But that question really tells me a lot about that individual. What's the riskiest thing that you've done? And I usually like these things. Challenging my boss where I found that he was asking me to do something that was not right. At the risk of being maybe fired or whatever, pull off the role, or telling a client what the truth was instead of telling him what he wanted to know. Stuff like that. That also says things. So these are 2 or 3 questions that I typically get. And specifically for entrepreneurship, one question that I typically use, and maybe is, how many unread emails do you have in your inbox? I've usually found, it may be a completely incorrect proxy, I've usually found people who are really anal, like everything should be perfect, they will have very few unread emails in their inbox. It's like this thing that they have to keep reading their emails, even if it's about deleting them. They will still make sure that there is no unread email in their inbox. And they just tell something about the person. There are people who have like 6,000 unread emails. I don't know, how can you ever get structured in that environment? Maybe they're awesome still with that. So you have to figure out those questions that relate to you and your business. Retention is a completely different story. I wouldn't even go there.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.
Sometimes don't you think intuition also plays a part?
No,
Because
absolutely.
see, because if you go too much to the 1%, there are some people who just like, oh listen, yeah, for me money is life and everything is like, I can buy anything, I can buy everyone. I'm like, yeah, sure, good for you, I'm happy for you, but I can't, thanks. But so don't you think all this?
No, absolutely. And I think as an entrepreneur, your intuition should be your favorite friend or your best friend. I would never give up on that. Sorry, please.
No, please.
So I think what I was referring to is, you have to, of course, get to a certain benchmark for you to even get into these questions, right? And that connect has to happen much before. Now, I am privileged where I sit today because most people who come to interview with me have already passed through multiple filters of my colleagues, my people in the company, HR, blah, blah, blah. And we've all defined what are the things that we're looking for. And most of them are non-transactional. Most of them are elements of culture fit. Most of them are things like, has he worked in an environment where he was supposed to call sir and ma'am to his seniors? Has he worked in environments where he had to come to work every day even though he was not required to come to work every day? Now, what is the kind of worldview that he comes from? What kind of colleges has he gone to? What kind of performance has happened there? Does he have some spark in him? Is there something different outside? And I know that I distinctly remember I've hired people. So anyone like that who comes up has already passed through this. And there are a lot of these interview feedback that we get. He's like, I can't pinpoint, but there is something about him. Right? And there is a lot of these instances that come to me. And I would also conclude with the same remark. And we would say, let's go in. The risk of failure is too small than the risk of not trying him out. Let's do it, and it's worked out in several instances. But you will, and as you would imagine, if you're trying to build a really big company, you will perhaps come to a point where it has to be a little more transactional because it's just voluminous, etc. But for the first few hires, what you're saying cannot be undervalued.
Hi, I'm Nitish actually.
Hi.
Uh, my question is like your first startup was secondshadi.com, right?
Yes.
So in India, shadi is a kind of crime word.
Yes.
Yes. So what kind of marketing problem you are facing at that time?
Yeah.
Uh,
That's it. I'm glad you asked this question. So what happened? Exactly the same thoughts had come to our mind that second shadi as a concept is, or second marriage or remarriages is somewhat of a taboo. People don't speak about it easily. You definitely don't have pundits carrying kundlis of people who are divorcees or widows, right? So what was amazing is the day we launched, and people started getting to know about it. The media labeled us as reformers, right? So we became these crusaders out there to change the society and everything. So Second Shadi has got more press coverage, positive press coverage than any other business except for Groupon, but that's because it's a large company, than any other business. Even though they were far more successful businesses than Second Shadi financially or anything otherwise. Because they said, oh, there's this new concept, and now divorcees and widowed people finally have a way to find their partners. This is just exactly what India needed. I remember I started getting calls from people who was like, what do you think is the divorce rate in India? It's like, we're not divorce experts or anything like that, right? Can you comment on, do you think that call centers is a big reason why divorces are happening in India? So I can't even connect. No, they're working late at night, but the wife is working in the morning, so they don't even meet, and etc. I said, I'm not even married, so why are you asking me these questions? So surprisingly, and it was not by design, almost all the marketing that happened for Second Shadi was very positive from a PR perspective, very positive. And I think that was because it was the first time something like this had happened. That was it. Because even Shadi.com or Bharat Matrimony and all the other sites, they never really spoke about this section of marriages openly or discussed it. So it helped us. But it wasn't something that we could have ever comprehended.
have you faced any problem there?
No. There wasn't, thankfully not. Like it came to a point where people said, do you have a counselor on board? Or can you offer counseling services? Because I'm not sure of, I'm still over to get for my first marriage, so I want to make sure I'm ready for my second marriage, etc. So no, there were a lot of demands from people who were like 26 years of age. So we couldn't even disclose our ages to people that, we're not even married the first time, so forget that. But thankfully, no problems. Thankfully not.
So now you've been with Groupon now a couple of years, 2011,
Yes,
2013.
2.5 years now.
So
Yes.
what's next on your roadmap now?
I have a few personal goals to achieve at Groupon. And after that, I honestly don't know, and that's the story of my life. I don't know what I'll be doing next. I just know that whatever it is, it will be in the internet space. That's something that really comes naturally to me. I love this media. I love what it can do. I'm also beginning to become really fascinated about the mobile space in specific, not necessarily mobile and internet, but pure mobile businesses by itself. And I think the way most of us are now consuming the mobile phone is just absolutely fascinating. It just makes me wonder where the next business idea is. It's for sure that the next big idea is coming on the mobile phone. It will not be the internet anymore. I see myself there, but what specifically in that? No idea. Absolutely not.
So quick follow-up question on that.
Sure.
Now Groupon is at the cross section of, or rather intersection of e-commerce and advertising.
Yes.
Right? Two of the biggest buzzwords in the market.
Yes.
What do you think of both of these spaces? What do you think is going to power the next, version of scale? Is it e-commerce? Is it advertising? Within the context of mobile or internet within India.
Yeah.
We of course have a lot of data on what's happening in the US and abroad.
Yeah.
But within Indian context,
Yeah.
what do you think is really going to
I think
shape up?
two trends will definitely emerge. One, mobile commerce will definitely pick up. Has to. But what will also happen is advertising from, again, a mobile perspective will see, or advertising will see a comeback because of mobile. So the biggest challenge that advertising-led businesses in India faced were they were still very disconnected from the normal life of the consumer. So Yahoo was all about coming to yahoo.com, consuming the media, doing that, etc. But now we all know that our consumption of media is more and more on the go. It is not sitting in front of a computer and making time for it, etc. It's on the move. It's about Google Maps, it's about Zomato, it's about Book My Show, it's about instant redemption, whatever it is. And because of that, content will see a resurgence, definitely. So if you are, and that kind of sums up with the mobile thing itself. So I think digital will see a massive, massive push towards mobile, and WhatsApp to a great extent has proven that. They are. I read this and it was fascinating and shocking at the same time. India is the only country for Facebook where it has a majority of its users who have accessed Facebook only on mobile and have never ever accessed it on the web, ever. They only have accessed Facebook on the mobile phone, and that's fascinating. It's just mind-boggling how that has happened. And it is amazing how things like WhatsApp and Facebook and not so much Twitter, but at least these two have penetrated the Indian market, especially on the phone. I can't find, it's crazy how many people are there on WhatsApp without it needing a Pariniti Chopra or anyone to be marketed, right? And the head of business for WhatsApp is an ISBN from my batch. Right? He's a multimillionaire, of course, on paper, and he's in the thick of things. So I keep going back to him every day. I was like, you have so much information about how the world is changing. You're literally that future scientist, if you will. And it's like, yeah, it's just fascinating what all people are doing.
I think the ISP was a good decision.
Yeah, it seems like it. No, absolutely.
Hi, sorry for using the platform like a Q&A of a newspaper, but I'd actually want to go about defining a situation that I'm currently in,
Sure.
and I'd like to probably seek your advice on it. I was working with a good FMCG company in the marketing department, drawing good salary. Everything was okay. Till about 6 months ago when I started getting bored with the brand that I was working upon. And although it was one of the most fun brands in a fun category, confectionery and doing a lot of stuff, but then despite that, we picked up social media. I started working on digital, started display advertising, everything, thinking that might change my mind because that'll be that'll be new age media and it'll be different kind of thinking that'll entail. But despite that, I was getting bored. And then I decided that I actually had a research background, consumer research background, and I went on a sabbatical and took up some projects for Microsoft Seattle and British Airways, and I was super happy working on those projects. And now I have decided to quit. I've actually put in my papers and I'm starting my own consumer research firm.
Awesome.
Now, although I've made that decision, so there is no going back on it, but my question is that on one hand, I feel that because I don't have any funds to start this company, so I don't want to invest in terms of managing an office space or hiring people. So my thought is that maybe I could start gathering projects that I can and probably start building capital, take home only my salary the way it was earlier, and then reinvest that into creating an office space and hiring people.
Right.
My other thought is that, am I capable of working from home? So whether it is a good decision to invest in the beginning or whether I should wait for my business to reach a point where I should start reinvesting back into the business.
Right.
So
I think I'll answer the question simply from a bootstrapping perspective. That there is raising funds is a very fashionable thing to do, and there are some businesses that cannot do without it. So if you're looking at retail businesses, like for instance, could Flipkart have reached where it is today without funds? The answer is absolutely no. But could some other companies have reached where they are without funds? The answer is yes. There are a lot of businesses that don't require the funds, but a lot of founders get into this fashionable thing, or XYZ company has raised X million from funds and now is in the radar of future investments also. It's a lot of pressure, honestly. Wherever you can, this is my limited guidance, but I would love to know more to give you some better ones, is wherever you can, do it your own way. An office space is not mandatory for running your business. A computer is. Right? So if you have to invest that in getting a better computer than what you have today, then getting a better office space. People are perhaps more important for your business than anything else. But can that come at the expense of not having a good sales guy? Maybe not. Right? So because eventually that project will pay for whatever it is. So think of what are these levers now. So there are these enough. If you go to the Silicon Valley and you hear these presentations, people like me would be not like me, much better than me sitting here. So they will always say, you give yourself +1 for every engineer you have and -10 for every MBA you have. And that's the way they think, because theirs is a fundamental product-driven business. Everything is about engineers. But if you were to look at a consumer research company, or if you were to look at a media agency that you were to build, etc., then you would say, give yourself +1 for every sales guy that you have, and maybe -10 for every strategy role that you have, or the office space that you're planning to build, or anything like that. Bootstrap to whatever extent possible, and don't be ashamed of doing it. You will be maybe for a short period of time feeling that where am I? My friends are earning better, they can afford a lot more, etc. But that's where Groupon comes in. And more importantly, you will know that what you're doing is right. So don't ever give up on that. The minute you feel that your faith in it is dwindling, largely because of the business, not because of yourself, that's when maybe you have to think twice. But don't be ashamed of living a absolutely down to the basics life as a startup guy. You need to define where you want to be. Set yourself goals. The goal cannot be I'll get acquired. The goal cannot be I'll list at whatever. The goal is in 6 months I need 50 paying clients. In X months I'll need that, and figure out how much do you really need to get to that, and whether you have it or not. And if you don't, do you revise the goal, or do you lower down your spending or whatever it is that you can do? And that's the way you have to think about it. So if you say, in 6 months I want to get into 50 paying clients and they will give me this much, but this is the money that I need, I don't have that money. So maybe you say, okay, my goal is actually 4 months and not 6, or I will not go for the office space that I was thinking of. I'll work from home, but I'll still get to that 6x paying clients, whatever it is.
Yeah, so as we students of Infinite Business School, we know that you're a brilliant teacher, and
I'm glad
when it comes to when it comes to making a study, when it comes to the way you teach, it's like amazing. And the course you take, it's like digital marketing. It's totally amazing. So my question to you is, how do you actually fit in the teaching part with it, with the entrepreneurship? How do you manage it? How do you fit in with the entrepreneur?
It's because I teach digital marketing and not human resources, right? So this is what I do for a living, right? So I don't have to prepare for the class. Now, if Surbhi or Nitin were to suggest that I take up a class of something that I'm not doing, then I'll either not be good at it, or it will just be such pain to prepare for it. But digital marketing, all the things that it is, it makes me better. So I know, for instance, the virality course that we had, I remember so I've been teaching this for 3 years now. The first year was all about Facebook, and that's what we spoke about, virality. Last year it was about YouTube and viral videos, and this year it was about WhatsApp. And every year it's changing. It's not the same content, it's not that, but I'm learning through that, and that's what it is. But it's because I do this for a living. This is what comes. Absolutely. And I'm blessed again that I think I can speak in front of a crowd and make myself understandable, and that's what I use.
Can we attend that course?
She's the lady you have to. It is on for sale.
You gotta have a Groupon going for that.
Yeah, I know. We'll run a Groupon deal on that.
Hi, my name is Ayush. I just wanted to know, what were the biggest problems which you faced with Gaadi?
Several, man. I think it was the hardest business that I've been in, harder than Groupon as well. The biggest difference was the realization let me answer it differently. I think our biggest mistake was to think that the business would happen in a way that was different from the normal world. So here's the thing about India, and that's what it makes it harder. All of us keep hearing about India is an unorganized market, India is this unorganized retail, etc., etc. How many of you really hate that unorganized retail market? Do you have a problem with that? No, we don't have a problem with that. It is super efficient, whatever unorganized behavior India shows or displays. You want to sell your used car, you don't have to go to any website to list it, anything like that. You just go to the local car dealer. In 2 hours, he'll give you the price that you want, or will tell you, boss, is price pe nahi bikega, and will give you the best price. Or if you want to buy a car, go in there. Even if he doesn't have it, in 2 hours, he'll give you the car at the price that you want. You want to buy something, there are streets and streets around it. Is Flipkart the best store to buy books or mobile phone? No. The shop down the road is, etc. So when we built of Gaadi, we were like these, from the Second Shadi Crusaders mode. We were like, we will transform this used car market and we will completely change it the way it is. It is, why should people have to go to a car dealer to buy their, or to sell their car? We will bring it all online, etc. And that was the biggest mistake, because what we realized is this unorganized market works beautifully. We are trying to make something organized when actually making or doing so will make it inefficient, not efficient. Unlike the US. Because in the US, retail is not spread out or does not have the kind of density that it does. And Walmart will always be off the city or your biggest store. So all that you have is 7-Eleven, but that will only store 3 variants of the ice cream that you want, while Walmart will have 10,000 or whatever it is. So the reason you have to drive there, it's inconvenience. But if the same stuff is available in India, it isn't. So that was the biggest learning. And it was very hard to figure that out. Because we went to used car dealers and they said, we don't need you. I don't see any value that you can add to us. I said, okay, oops. So we just built this website and now we don't know what to do with it. So, and then we turned around and we said, okay, forget all this. Let's make it into pure advertising and let's focus on new cars. So Maruti launches a car every day and they have this massive budget, etc., etc. But where are they getting the most fundamental things that they want, which is test drives? Because test drives is the fundamental marketing metric for any car company. Sales is the output of it, but test drives is the fundamental thing. How many people are getting a test drive? So he said, we'll facilitate test drives. We'll say, hey, you launched a car, you click on the banner, you'll come to a nice form, you'll fill up the form, and then someone from Maruti will call you, arrange for a test drive, all that. And that's where we had another realization. When you make it so open, everyone started asking for a test drive. And because now it was super simple. You don't have to go to the car dealer to get a test drive. You can literally sit there, it says test drive, and tomorrow a night. So people who had, and I shouldn't say that, but that was a reality. People who had income levels of 3 to 4 lakhs were test driving BMWs and Mercedes and all those stuff. And we weren't sending the income information because that was private information. So the dealers didn't know better. So they used to say, sir, ye Mangolpuri mein BMW, do you think this will sell? Sir, lead hai, someone's filled up that form, so I don't know. And that's where we had to revisit the model continuously. And that was a big learning experience, which is why the time we took from the second website, which is Gaadi, to our third, which is Study Nation, was the longest in the period I sent you. Because we just figured, hey, you know what, we thought it was simple, but it just isn't at all. So we have to get this right before we even move to the third one. And eventually we figured what was the blended route of doing it and what are the qualifiers, the checks and balances, what you do, etc. What is the main driver of getting it done, so on and so forth. So to just give you an instance of how we solved the test drive problem is we removed the book a test drive section completely and we translated that into get on-road pricing. So we said, when is it that you actually want on-road pricing? There is an ex-showroom price, but there is an on-road price which is inclusive of insurance, registration, octroy, tax, blah, blah, blah. Only people who are actually serious of buying that car you may check what the on-road price of a BMW is, but what is the likelihood that you can't afford it, but you would still check? Very less. But would you check a Maruti Swift and an Alto or something like that? Of course you will. And we started using that as a proxy for booking test drives. So we said on-road price, and then we asked the question, would you like a test drive? And that's when they were also the TK. No, it's there. We still had those incidences of people doing it, but they were far reduced. These were the two biggest examples. One, completely misunderstanding what the market or what we were trying to solve, and two, also not understanding the consumer.
Okay, so were you at any time, thinking about lead conversion rather than generation?
So we went to that route, but what happened is, what we realized is that was a lucrative business for us in a very non-intuitive manner. It was lucrative only for brands that were actually not selling. So brands that were not selling were the ones who were willing to pay us on a conversion model, because they knew that if they got the leads, they wouldn't, as it is, be able to convert the guy. So it says, our cars are not selling and we can't do anything about it. Let them sell it and we'll pay them the money directly. So it was non-intuitive because we were now trying to sell cars that, as it is, were not selling in the market. So we stopped that business.
So what's the story behind you being related to Shammi Kapoor's family?
No, I'm not related to Shammi Kapoor's family.
I don't know.
I don't know. There was a point of time when a lot of people started saying you look like Shammi Kapoor, and I don't know what wave that was. So I think it was the overweight wave, and it came to a point wherein I was traveling to Bombay in taking the Rajdhani, and I was getting off CST, I think, which was last stop. And there was this guy opposite who came in and was like, "Kya, to hero banna hai, Shammi Kapoor," and all that stuff. Like, what? No, people in Delhi were talking about this, and now Bombay guys this. But that was just a frivolous incident. It was a period of 1 month where somehow something had happened. Yes, please.
I have a very specific issue that I'm facing. I have a very unconventional background, as in I have done graduation in philosophy and then I did an MBA. And then I was working in this telecom company as a product innovations person. So, kind of things which don't go together.
No.
After working there for 2.5 years, you start getting that entrepreneurial bug that, maybe if I do things my own way, they could be launched faster and something would be my own kind of. Now, I have got few ideas, but what I'm facing difficulty in is finding tech guys, people who could actually convert those ideas into businesses. So what would be your suggestion? I mean, how's the way I should approach it?
Okay, great. I think that's a problem that almost all of us face at some point of time. I would as well, right? Because I'm not a tech guy. Yeah, exactly. That makes it the three of us at least. So the way you have to think about it, there are two questions that you have to answer. One is tech a core product / business feature? So if you're trying to build a Facebook and you're not a techie guy, sorry, right? That can't happen. But if you're trying to build a normal business, say Gaadi.com, the website is only the interface, but the actual action happens on the streets, or for that matter, say Naukri or whatever it is. So that's one. And if you do figure that tech is something that is core to your business, then the only way for you to do it is to get a co-founder or to learn it yourself. There's no other way. There's absolutely no other way. You have to get someone who is as passionate about that business as you are, and that person is either you or someone else that you know who could be.
What would be the way to find that co-founder?
Oh, that is a hard question. I thought I could get away with this. So finding a tech co-founder is hard. There are 2 or 3 opportunities or whatever avenues to do this. Of course, forums like these, don't miss them, and I'm guessing you're already doing it, which is why you're here as well. And the other is, and this is in general, don't ever be limited by having a completely wild idea and going there. So I'll tell you one instance. I had this idea, which I haven't been able to do, but I had this idea which was a complete tech idea, and I was really passionate about it, and I think I wanted to do it. So I went to IIT Delhi, and I posted that offering. I said, I'm looking for computer science guys, students who can work with me for 3 months. I'll pay them whatever is it that they would get in any other consulting role, etc., etc. So that's the money that I was able to commit. But I'll work with you and see whether I can get to a prototype that gives me the confidence. And once I get to that prototype, then I can either engage an agency to do it, or it'll be easier for me to find a co-founder who can build on this prototype because he can actually see it in action, rather than a non-techie trying to explain to a techie that this is a product I want to build. Like, yeah, come on, right? So that doesn't work. So don't hesitate from making these leaps. And you may think, student of philosophy, says, no, why would IIT Delhi do that? But there are enough people out there, and super smart guys, who want to get things done. And maybe they just need this one more hand to join. Said, okay, let's do it. Let's just go ahead and build it, because I would be wasting my summer internship in some European school working under a professor, or working my ass off in Goldman Sachs, which has nothing to do with what I'm doing right now. And maybe this will be better. Please.
Hi, sir. I need your advice, basically. My idea is on a very raw stage, so I'm planning to start something. So I just would like to know that is there need to register a web startup?
Are you the only one?
Yes, I'm the only one.
Then maybe not. But if you have a co-founder, it's always good to have a complete structure which is legal in place as well. And it's very easy to start a company in India, unlike what some of you may believe. It takes virtually 2 weeks to start a company in India, and it's all online. So that shouldn't be, and that should be the last of your worries in the sense. But to answer your question, if you're by yourself, you don't have to do it right now. It's only required when you get into a formal funding environment, or if you have another partner coming in, so that the split and the partnership is very well quantified. But till such time, not required.
But actually, sir, I would like to be very on a safe side. Basically, if I register a firm, basically, so if someone would like to sue me, because it's a portal like that, if someone would like to sue me, so that I can be on a very safe side, that it's not on me, it's on firm.
If it's that risky, then maybe yes, you should.
I should.
A private limited company. I don't know what you're starting, but it looks
That's
interesting.
what I'm thinking of. It should not be like that. It's on me.
तहलका तो नहीं खोल रहे ना तुम खुद ऐसा?
Not nothing like that, sir.
Sting videos.
No, sir. I'm not going on that side.
Okay. No, yeah. If there is any, that's a fair point. If there is any scope of a liability or any legal complication, it's good to have a private limited so that your liability is limited.
So actually, what happens if there is not any renowned company, so anyone would like to sue you that you did the wrong thing or whatever.
No, and that's fine. If you have that worry, then yeah, and it's not a big thing, so you can do it right away.
Thank you, sir.
Hi. Hello. Yeah. My question is related to Second Shadi.
Yeah.
So when you were building it and thinking about scaling it really,
yeah.
You've been really wishing to break first Shadi to build the second Shadi. I mean, people to come out for that.
Yeah. We used to invite ourselves to marriages and say, we have a better plan. No, not really. That wasn't the idea. I'm glad you were not a reporter. No, we were very actually to be very serious, that was a thought that always used to cross our mind. What if people say you are actually encouraging people, not encouraging, but at least saying that, you know what, it's now okay for you to get divorced because now you have second shadi. But that was giving ourselves more importance than we actually deserved, because it wasn't as if now people said, you know what, I don't need you anymore, I have secondshadi.com. That really didn't happen as much as we would like to believe. And at no point of time did we even project ourselves to the media like that. We were very, very conscious and cautious of that. So it was all about people who are already divorced, already widowed, and have no avenue to find a partner. If they wish to get married again, this is the platform. Please.
So when people, for now people have a platform for second shadi, right?
Yeah.
So till then, no, for now, there's a platform.
Yeah.
So people in the first shadi may be looking for the future one to break the first one.
And there were cases like that. They were actually people who were in the middle of their divorce on second shadi, and of course by law you cannot be married to get married again in India at least, if you are in specific religions. So we did have, as is, Facebook has, right? Are you single or in a relationship, etc. So we did have those as well. And in our capacity, all that we could say is when you're interacting with someone, make sure that you are absolutely sure of their credentials, verify that to whatever extent you can before you make the leap. And from your perspective as well, because we were a company, we had also absorbed ourselves from all such liabilities that someone would say, I married this guy and he was already married. So we were not liable for that.
When you are an entrepreneur, but how do you safeguard, your idea being taken?
No, I may be the wrong person to answer that, because that's also something that Rocket has also told me or made me aware that perhaps idea is the least important thing in the entire scheme of things. It's all about getting that idea to reality than anything else. In very few cases, and they may be. So I am, and that's just me, I am very dismissive of people who would say, I have an idea to share, but you'll have to sign an NDA. So as like, sorry, if you have an NDA, then I have someone else to talk to. Yeah, so I would never. If an entrepreneur thinks that their idea is so awesome that they cannot share it with anyone, then most likely they're thinking the wrong way. It has to be about what they do eventually with it.
Can I respond to that?
Please.
So I've started 2 venture-backed businesses, and my current one's in San Francisco, and we just closed 1.2 million just a couple months ago.
Congratulations.
And my previous one was in Brazil, I just referenced earlier. And this, people who have not started a business before, this is one of the biggest first questions. But what if somebody steals my idea, right? And first off, that's so natural and normal to feel that. And if you're feeling that, welcome to the club. I think the best way to prevent somebody from stealing your idea is to build walls. I remember I was really interested in the payment space one time, and no one was really in it. I'd heard about the company that became Square, but this is before they'd even publicly launched. Right. So it's like, right in the beginnings of kind of the resurgence of the payment space. And I was like, I want to build a robust and flexible money collaboration tool. That's what I called it. And then I was reading a TechCrunch article, and this company was building a product very similar to mine, right? And they had Max Levchin as an advisor. So it's like, for me, what did I do? I sunk in my chair, and I was like, great. I don't want to do it anymore, right?
Yeah.
Because they built a wall. Yeah. They said, well, you know what? We're staking a claim. And we got Max effing Levchin to advise us. That's a wall. So had they even launched it? Yeah. Barely. They had a really early semblance of a product. So you could say, anybody could go build the same thing, and likely maybe you could. But you're not going to get Max Levchin.
Yeah.
So I think in the idea is now that's a big coup, right? Young startup getting Max Levchin, that's a big deal. But there's lots of ways to build walls that when somebody hears about it, it's like, oh, geez, can I do that? I don't know. Maybe we should go back to the drawing board. So you really just want to start when you're really young. You're really only competing against even younger companies, right? So it doesn't matter if some bigger company does it, right? We can't compete against that. But against other entrepreneurs, other people that are thinking, maybe they're scoping for an idea, just try and find a wall that you can build that makes someone else feel like, maybe not worth going in that area. It looks like they've kind of got something going.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Thank you. I think that's a fantastic response.
If you have an idea, but I have a little bit of experience about it, and you are going to someone and say, we have this idea, and you are fear that someone will build better than me. If you have fear that someone will better than you, I think you stop this idea, because there is no way to doing. Because idea is, I think the role is not a big, because building team, or there are a lot of things. Look the market, everybody is having a different thought, different process, different things. So it doesn't matter to go in anywhere or if you tell the idea, because it's all about the person.
Right.
Idea is nothing until or unless if execution is not there, execution, team building, market, there are a lot of things you require. Idea's role is only, I think, is the maybe is a 10% or 15%. The rest of them is the execution is required. So no one will copy the idea. What I realize.
No, I wouldn't disagree with that. Please.
Just to follow up to this, because this is what my B school professor had shared. It's, I mean, obviously the guy now involved is Steve Jobs, so but I'm just trying to draw a parallel. This guy, my B school professor, has invested in about 70, 80 businesses and has about 10, 15 good exits, so he's done pretty well for himself. Guy in his late 50s, maybe mid 50s, and I graduated about 3-4 years back. So he goes to Steve Jobs and versus Larry and Larry Page and Sergey Brin. So when he went to Steve Jobs, Jobs was like, he was dismissive. You know what the hell, I'll just copy your idea. And he was like damn aggressive, and he's like, when I looked at Steve Jobs, I was like, my goodness, man, literally my jaw dropped. I was like, well, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
But then he said, when I went to Larry Page and Sergey Brin, these guys were like nice guys. I mean, they, not the, the shark mentality, I got to eat this guy up.
Right.
So my point is that, okay, now the guy may not be a Steve Jobs in front of you, one in maybe a million people get that chance. But if there's a guy, when you think about sharing your idea, this is why he said I became very selective about sharing ideas after that.
Right.
Maybe not a Steve Jobs, but there's a guy who can replicate my idea. I'm looking for him for advice, maybe to collaborate, but that guy says, no, I'm not giving you advice, I'm not collaborating. I'm just giving you a kick in your butt and out you go. I'm just copying it. So sometimes that is a real idea and it's happened.
No, and it's happened several times. There's documented proof of it happening several times.
Yes, then what does a guy do?
There isn't any way out. I think this is a great way of thinking about it, that what is the wall that you can build? The wall could be money. The wall could be just power. The wall could be people who are advising you or mentoring you. The wall could be something else, technology. Most startups here have technology as walls, whatever it is. And maybe you are in a position where you don't have any wall, and maybe that's when you say, you know what, I'm going to be extremely secret about it and only share it to people who care or whatever it is, and that's your call. But don't, the way I always think about it is the following. I know for a fact that I'm not smarter than the average world. So what is the likelihood that I would think of an idea and no one else has? Zero. The likelihood of that happening is zero, especially in today's socially connected world. The likelihood that I have an idea that no one else has is zero. So there are several people at the same time who have that idea, but what differentiates them from me or me from them is that someone is gone ahead with it. And that's what happened. None of the businesses that you've seen that have launched and have become extremely successful, right from an Instagram to a Square to a Facebook to a WhatsApp, whatever, were new or were completely disruptive. The only one that I can perhaps think of is the iPhone in the recent past, but nothing else, or very few of them, would have completely disruptive ideas that no one else had thought of. And if that's the case, you may be giving yourself way too much importance than you could. But that would still be the case, and in that case, you go with your gut. You don't want to share, don't. But don't think that that would safeguard you.
My question was also related to something like, if you have a technological idea, you can patent it.
Yeah.
Some are those areas in India, something that you can...
Yeah. See, technology patents is, as it is, a very disputed area. I don't know what that means. You can have patents for physical things, but how can you patent technology? Yeah, exactly. Swipe and round curves. But the best question in the world.
Yeah.
Please, yes.
Yeah, at one point of time, there was a large number of daily deal businesses in India.
Yes.
And most of them have either moved into different model, like Snapdeal, now completely into e-retail.
Yeah.
So what's your take on the profitability of this daily deal businesses?
So I'm biased, but it's fascinating. It is absolutely fascinating. I think the reason why most daily deal sites died in India is because they did not think of the business the way we think of it. This business is all about merchants. It's not about customers. Sorry to break your heart, but it's not. It's about merchants getting customers. And you have to solve the business problem of the merchant, not the customer. Now what happened is all the other versions of daily deals, and we have to somewhat thank Snapdeal for that. Kunal's a good friend. I met him last week as well, and each time I meet him, I always tell him, you screwed up. You did, and he said, no, this was by choice. Yeah, whatever. But the entire mechanism of having a token price, which is pay 49, pay 99, and pay the rest to the merchant, is absolutely harmful for the merchant, because the kind of people who will walk in and the kind of expectation they would have, etc., is very different from people who are coming in paying the full price model, where they would have paid the entire triple line, etc., and the entire technology that is given to the merchants, etc. To answer your question, think about it this way. How many of us would buy a mobile phone every month? No one, maybe some. How many of us would buy a book every month? Maybe yes. How many of us would buy a Bluetooth device every month? No. How many of us would buy a shoe every month? No. How many of us would buy a jeans or a t-shirt or a shirt every month? Maybe yes. Now, how many of us would go out to eat every day or every week or every month? A lot of us. How many of us would go and get a health package every month? Maybe. How many of us would want to go for a spa or a massage every month? Yes. How many of us would like to travel out for a weekend destination for 2 or 3 days? Yes. So, as I had mentioned before, the reason why it's small right now is because you're building this category. This concept did not exist. This concept in the US today is, in 4 years, worth $3 billion. To set things in context, Amazon, an 11-year-old company, is $50 billion. Last quarter, quarter 2 of 2013, Groupon had 7.5 million downloads of the mobile app across the globe. Amazon, in comparison, had 5 million downloads in quarter 2. And that is the largest e-commerce company that we know of in the world. So when you think of this, and when you think of the market that you're sitting on, you think this is a $1 trillion market. You're not thinking billions anymore. And it's for us to win or for us to lose. Will Groupon be the #1 player in this market? No one knows. But will this market continue to exist and only become bigger and bigger and bigger? Decisively, yes. And eventually profitable as well. We're already profitable globally, but when you think of markets or pieces like India, etc., it's investment mode. We'll get there. Perfect.
I think it's time to wrap up.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you to Rachan for again helping us out with the recording. Amazing.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Nice to Infinity.
Thank you.